everyone. I'm here today with Phil Holdcroft, who was the winner of the Chester 100. How are you? It's been a couple weeks now, hasn't it?
I'm great. Great to be on, Emily. Thanks for having me. So nearly 3 weeks, I think, or maybe just over. So legs are getting there. I think I'd take a long time to recover from these things. And I see people bouncing back. One person, I think, even did the London Marathon the week after, which I definitely couldn't have done. But yeah, energy's back and legs are nearly there.
Amazing. I think you probably put in so much effort that your body just needs just a little bit more time to recuperate.
It was definitely going deep on that one. And yeah, first few days, there's a lot of old man noises emanating from me, and going up and down the stairs was quite comical. But
You'll have to get a stair lift to take you up the races.
there's a lot of tough love in the house as well. But my wife has no sympathy for self-induced pain, so yeah, there's no special treatment.
Brilliant. So, you've had quite an eclectic life. Will you introduce us to who you are and how you found ultra running?
Great. Yeah. So I guess as a career, I've been in the military for the vast majority of my working life. I've recently retired. I was a Royal Air Force pilot. Spent 20 years there. Did lots of operations and actually lots of stuff which the military taught me. I definitely apply to the world of endurance sport, certainly the planning and the mental resilience as well. Since leaving, I've gone into the world of performance coaching, supporting teams and others to try and achieve extraordinary results. And I have a deep passion for endurance sport. I always have, but it took on a new meaning back in 2014. I had a young daughter who's succumbed to leukemia, and she had an awful battle with leukemia. Fortunately, she came out the other side and is a happy, healthy, thriving 11-year-old. But I used endurance sport as a way of connecting with her journey, what she was going through, the sort of the pain, the suffering which she experienced. And it's my way of trying to understand that and also use my love of endurance sport as a platform to raise money and awareness for incredible charities which genuinely help save a life. So that led to this deep dive into endurance sport. It led to some crazy sort of challenges. What I saw as right on the edge of the possible. Lots of running ones, working my way up to 100 miler, and also a row across the Atlantic. But I believe all of them give you lessons which can transfer across. But the Chester 100, that was very much about a bit of a selfish, pursuit of my passion. Try and apply everything which I teach others in my job as a performance coach, and try and walk the walk. Could I apply what I tell people to do, and does it actually work? So it's a real skin in the game. Let's see if I can practice what I preach.
Yeah, let's. Or your coach, it's like when you have a PE teacher and you're like, well, you do it. Like if it's like you do it, I'm sure your coachees were probably just like, oh, okay, he knows what he's talking about then.
Well, there's definitely some pressure, but I did try and treat it as a bit of a project. I set myself the challenge on around about New Year's Day. It was right, okay, this is a biggie, and I outlined what I wanted my A goal to be, and the A goal, if all went really well, was to try and finish on the podium. And so I did everything which I tell my teams and my coaches to do. And actually, it worked. Some stuff not so well, some stuff really well. So yeah, lots of lessons came out of it.
Amazing. So you've spoken in some of your blogs about your power of purpose. Do you want to kind of delve a little bit more into that?
Yeah, I think purpose is a huge one. When I think of something like 100 miler, I think there's probably 30% which is talent, genetics, natural ability. You've got it, and you've got to you've got to work with it. I think there's probably another 30% which might be the training, the physical preparation which you do. But I think 40%, the biggest chunk is probably psychological resilience. And a big part of that is the purpose, your why. What's driving you to dig deep and give all. And I really noticed that when I started doing endurance events for my daughter to connect with her, because it was no longer just about me or a competition. And I found that rather than being really nervous, sort of sick with anxiety on the start line, I felt brimming with confidence because it was no longer about me. It was about something so much bigger. It was about my daughter, all the people who maybe were giving money to charity to sponsor the event. And that became huge. But for the Chester 100, a pretty tragic sort of backstory. 15 days before the event, a mentor and friend of mine, one of the best leaders I've ever worked for in the Royal Air Force, he reached out and told me he had a terminal brain tumor. And it was awful news. But I tried to think, how could a Chester 100 be something which is positive? So I wrote back to him. He's stationed in Hawaii at the moment, so great location. And I said, you know what? The Chester 100 is dedicated to you, my friend. I'm going to give my absolute all. And every single step of the way, I'm going to carry you in my heart and in my head, and I'm going to give everything for you. I know he was really touched by it, and at every stage I sort of dug deep, thought of him, and those sort of bad patches. I think thoughts of him just kept that voice, that negative voice we all have. It kept it really quiet. And so Pip Harding, you're in Hawaii. He's now the proud owner of the Chester 100 winners buckle, and I've given it him as something that he can have, for the tough journey he's got to go through, to think of all those who are rooting for him and supporting him. So yeah, purpose. If you can make your purpose bigger than your pain, you can do anything. So I'm a big believer in that, Emily.
And I love that the buckle is now in beautiful Hawaii rather than, rainy old England. Been on its own journey.
Oh,
Uh,
it,
so,
it has.
so what enticed you about the Chester 100 as a race?
Yeah, so I hadn't done a big long ultra run since 2019. So I wanted to get back into ultra running. My family, we recently settled down since leaving the military just south of Chester. So it's on our doorstep. I'd read amazing things about the GB Ultra organization. They'd put on some great races. So I was like, right, this is the perfect one. And the best thing about it, not only was I able to go on some local trails, which I knew well, I knew were going to be horrendously muddy, but it was going to be my family could come along and support a bit. So seeing my girls at Beeston at that checkpoint 3 was exceptional. It gave me such a lift, such a boost. And my poor wife, who I told, right, we're going to be done around about midnight. She was she was in car parks at 1, 2 in the morning. So bless her, she's an absolute star. As much as the tough love she gives me the next day.
I think you kind of need that though, don't you? I live with my grandma and all week she's just been like, well, you've done this to yourself. So there's only so much to this. And I'm like, I know, grandma, I'm sorry.
That's it. It stops you wallowing, doesn't it? You're like, right, I'm gonna have to get on with it.
Yeah. So walk me through your race a little bit. How were you feeling throughout? What were some of the low moments and some of your favorite moments?
I mean, it's a day. It's a long day, and definitely some highs and lows. So I'd say the highs was the incredible volunteers, and just the spirit, the camaraderie, and just how incredibly selfless they were. That was amazing. You saw that at every single checkpoint, and at the finish, which must have been a very cold affair in the wee hours of the morning. But I came into the race feeling confident as you can do. Everyone always has a few worries and anxieties, but I was well up for this, and especially with the purpose which we talked about, running it for my good friend. So the first 30 miles, it was steady. It was very, very muddy early on, and I think it was just accepting, actually, it's going to be muddy throughout. The idea of going for the course record, I think that quickly became apparent that the conditions were going to make that nigh on impossible. And so I just tried to run my own race, and I just try and be as consistent as possible. There were some absolute speedsters who went off. I think Sean Merriweather. I was gobsmacked on the out and back bit to checkpoint three, where I saw him, and he probably had a mile and a half lead on me at that point. And I was like, "Wow, I've not seen that. That is impressive." But I think it's being disciplined and thinking, actually, you've set this strategy, you've come up with some splits which you want to hit. Don't get carried away with other people's races, sort of run your own. I think the real challenges, the real low points, I think it was probably one which was coming out of Frodsham, running a bit, running 500 meters in the right direction, and then I got some bad advice, from a very well-meaning marshal who ran after me and said I was going the wrong way. So I ran back to the checkpoint to then be told you were going the right way. But that's a lesson in itself. I mean, no race is going to go perfectly. I think in total I ran an extra 3 miles. Most of that was my fault. Poor navigation at night, and it's trying to respond rather than react to that. If you automatically throw your toys out of the cot and say this is it, that's not fair. That is not going to result in a good performance. So it's like, okay, that is not ideal, but it's fine. I've got this. I can reset mentally and sort of move on. And then the other challenge is probably where there's about an hour of rain. And for me, it was in that section when you're up near Warrington and Runcorn. And it's trying to reframe that. It's trying to reframe it as, right, it's raining, I'm getting cold. Okay, that's okay. I've trained through the winter for this. I can cope with this perhaps better than other people can. And again, it was thinking about my friend and the treatment he's going through for his brain tumor, and thinking this is just one day. This is nothing. I've elected to do this. Don't suffer. And then I'd say the other tough bit was coming back to Frodsham. And there was a section along the river where the camber is trying to throw you into the river, super muddy. And I was torn. Part of me was thinking this is pretty miserable here. The other part was thinking I've trained in a lot of mud, so I'm conditioned for this. But seeing people coming the other way, I felt so sorry for them because I didn't want to break their spirit. Because at first they were confused, why is somebody coming the other way? Thinking that I'd quit and turn around. And then I had to gently let on that this is this is the place you'll be in another 30 miles, which which probably wasn't what they wanted to hear.
Amazing.
So yeah.
So, so how did it feel going through kind of the night section? Had you trained kind of the sleep deprivation a little bit?
Yeah, so I don't know if you can train for sleep deprivation. With a team of three other Air Force pilots, we did a row across the Atlantic, and that was horrendous for sleep. The most you'd sleep would be an hour 20 in a single block, and I don't know. I think you just learn to tolerate it. I don't think you you get comfortable with it, but it was accepting that this was just a few hours of night time, and actually I've got this big bag of evidence which says I can do that, and try and draw on that little portfolio of evidence that you've done harder stuff in the past. It's certainly made navigation harder, and even though the course is really well marked, when you're tired, you're in a wood. It becomes very difficult. And there were so many times I just had to keep retracing my steps, find it. And it's about trying to stay positive when that's happening. But interestingly, just as it was getting dark, I got news that I think Sean Merriweather had dropped out, and I was in second round about mile 75, and then round about towards mile 80 on the route back to Frodsham, I went past the then leader, and that sort of changed everything because mentally I was really up for the fight then. I was like, right, okay, here we go. I've got two people ahead. I think I'm closing. And then all of a sudden, I had a section at night where I had a lead of about 40 minutes, and it was really weird. So I was in a race, but the pressure was completely off. So it sort of changed it. And I ran that last leg with a really close Air Force friend. He sort of took me the 11 miles home, and it just became a great bonding session. You know, we were able to chat. I dare say we did a lot of speed marching and not much running because it was sort of in the bag. So part of me was like, I expected this big fight in the last leg, and it didn't materialize. So it became about just completely immersing in that great bonding experience with one of my best friends, which was mega.
So how did it feel to finish then, knowing that you'd won?
Ah, that's so unbelievably satisfying. So winning was never the sort of aim. I think the aim was sort of executing a race which aligned with what I teach people about. Try and use the tools which I tell people about, the mindset stuff, and putting that into practice was enormously rewarding. I think it was so special being able to I guess have the win, but dedicate it to someone else, and that became so rewarding in itself, and getting news that it made his day, and how much of a difference it meant to others. But I think having the organisers there, my wife at the finish, again, there was something so special about that. Finishing at a racetrack is a really nice venue to sort of seal it off. So yeah, I think as races go, I've had the real privilege over the years to take part in some very special events, not just running, but that is as good as it gets. And I'll remember it for the rest of my years. So yeah, so proud and so privileged to have had that opportunity.
Is your trophy, has it got pride of place somewhere in your home now?
Well, so this is always a little bit of a domestic point of tension, but trying to justify one. But I think my wife is convinced. I'm just going to have to put up some new shelving because so yeah, that will find a place. It might have to be in the study rather than in the living room there.
So do you think your previous experience in the military and now your high performance coaching, do you think that's given you a bit of an edge in comparison to some of the other runners out there?
I definitely think it did, but I think everything which I applied is learnable.
Mhm.
I really believe it. I think there's a few tools which we can all apply. They take practice. They're not just hacks that they give you overnight success. One thing which the military is very good at is sort of planning, and you've probably heard the phrase "control the controllables." But really diving into that, what does it mean? So for the Chester 100, it became very apparent that the conditions were going to be muddy. One of the wettest winters on record, and it was looking wet right up until the day of the event. And living locally, I'd been on some of the horrendous sections on the sandstone trail, and I knew it was going to be, mid shin depth.
Yeah.
And so you've got a choice. How do you use your energy and your time? Is it just worrying, or just actually what can you control? I can't control the mud, but I can control my footwear. I can control my sock routine. I can control my drop bag, and also I can control my sort of mindset. And also I can train in those conditions deliberately. So on the day, it's something which your body and your mind's conditioned for. Similarly, you can't control the competition, so don't worry about who's going to pitch up on the day. That is irrelevant. Get a structured race plan. Think of your splits. Yes, you can adjust it. And for me, I realized that the mud meant for the second half, I was going to have to be a little bit more conservative, but focus on what you can control. Same with illness. We're all, especially in the taper period, we've become hypochondriacs. So what can you do? You can't control, whether you pick up that freak illness, but you can do things like vitamins. You can, simple things like washing your hands, and perhaps staying away from people who you know are poorly. And that way, all your energy, your time, your actions are being dedicated to things which will really make a difference. So I think planning is a good one. And I think the other one is reframing. And again, you may be familiar with this. Reframing, all it is taking the same sensory information you're receiving it, but changing the story you tell yourself. So I'd say definitely the best example would be wading through the shin depth mud, going out away from Beeston Castle. This is where I came across Sana. Incredible. What a wonderful lady. Big smile on her face. And she actually chatted with my girls at one of the checkpoints. So huge respect to that awesome lady. But going through that mud, it'd be very easy to get down and see it as just this insurmountable obstacle. But if you can reframe that, and one thing which you could do is think about, I could compare it to my friend and what he's going through, and think this is so much easier than that. Or you can reframe it and say, I've trained in these conditions all winter. I'm going to monster this compared to those poor others who've been training on pavements or dry trails. So if you've got these little mechanisms or options to reframe, it can be really powerful. And before you know it, you've got a big smile on your face, thinking this mud is giving me the advantage right now. More mud, please.
So what time did you officially finish him?
Oh, I should know that, but I don't. So it was 20 hours and some minutes. I think round about 19 or
I'll put
20
it
minutes.
I'll put it in words somewhere on the screen so everybody knows. So what's your recovery been like following the race and contacting your friend and such?
Yeah, so I think post race, I don't think I'm the best at recovery. I think I've got lots of room for improvement there, especially looking at how quickly others bounce back. So recovery has been pretty gentle. I got back into running about a week and a half. But definitely they've been hitting me hard. So back-to-back running's been a little bit tricky. But I've got this enormous hard landscaping project in the garden, which is definitely on my wife's and my to-do list. So I've been getting my recovery in by swinging a pickaxe and shoveling tons of mud. Yeah, so I think it's about being kind to yourself, though. I think I've definitely been a culprit in the past of trying to get hard training in too soon. And I think deep down, yes, we can wear, great gadgets and which tell us how we're doing, but you instinctively know when you're ready to start pushing again. I'm starting to get there. So I'd say another week, and I'll be back to some proper training and starting to plot the next challenge.
Do you have what's your next challenge? Have you got any ideas that are frothing up?
So I'll have to be careful in case the wife hears this, okay? But the door's shut, so there's a good chance she won't. Having done the GB Ultra event, I've got immense loyalty to them, so I've been looking very hard at the rest of their events for the year. I think the big running goal would have to be the race across Scotland. That would be up there. When I'm not sure, but for the rest of this year. I'm very keen to get some other 50 milers in and some ultras. And I think that might keep the balance on the domestic front. Okay. And then I'll have to sneak in when my wife's having a weak moment, the race across Scotland plan.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to come on with me today. I've had so much fun talking to you and learning so much that I hope I can take on in future races.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Emily. Great to chat to you. I love everything you do for the ultra running community. It's a pleasure to be a guest today.
Thank you. Where can people find you online to, get in contact with you?
So LinkedIn is probably the place where I put most blogs out. And if you search for Phil Holdcroft, you'll come across me there on LinkedIn. I can send a little link if you like,
Yeah,
in case you want to.
I'll put the link in the description so people can come and find you. Brilliant. Thank you
Perfect.
so much.
Thanks.